Welcome to No Bull with Zaid, where you're gonna get unfiltered business news like you've never heard before. Uber might be bouncing from the state of California because a judge just ruled this week that Uber has to classify their drivers as full-time employees. And let me tell you something, Uber cannot afford that shit. This all has to do with a law that was passed in California earlier this year that requires companies like Uber and Lyft and Postmates to classify their drivers as full-time employees. Let me tell you something, that's not how these companies' business models work. The way their business model works is they pay their drivers as little as they possibly can to make any sort of money. And let me give you a little secret, Uber has never made any money in their history of their company so far. In 2019 alone, Uber lost $8.5 billion.
Say what?
There's no way in hell they're gonna be able to list their drivers as full-time employees, because by doing that, they would have to provide their drivers things like minimum wage guarantees and health insurance, and that shit is expensive, bro. Yeah, it's not happening. And Uber and Lyft and other companies are rather just leave the state of California than list their drivers as full-time employees because they know that they will never be able to make a profit. They're not a taxi company, and what Uber claims is that, bro, our drivers, they're not full-time employees. They don't have set hours. They can log in whenever they want. They can log off whenever you want. No fucking full-time employee can do that at their actual job. Can you do that at your job? I can't just log in and log off whenever the fuck I want. So that's the case that Uber and Lyft are making, and they've already filed for an appeal on the ruling that was made this week. But if they can't come up with an agreement with the state of California soon, they're already ready to bounce, which would be a huge bummer for everybody. Can you imagine the reaction of the citizens of California when they're out having fun on a Friday night and they can't pull up an Uber? Yeah, that would be a problem. I also wonder if this is going to result in more states passing laws that require Uber to list their drivers as full-time employees. I don't think it will, but we'll have to watch this closely because again, Uber has never made a profit, and this is a huge hurdle that they have to overcome if more states decide to pass laws like this. I don't see it happening, and I think that they're going to come up with an agreement with the state of California, but this is a very interesting story, and it can determine the future of Uber as a company. Amazon is about to start taking over your malls. That's right, Amazon is talking to Simon Properties, the biggest mall owner in America, and Simon Properties has been in a bit of trouble recently because a lot of their big-time tenants, Sears, JCPenney, well, those guys have gone bankrupt. And those guys used to lease out the big department stores on the edges of the mall that are over 200,000 square feet, and now those units are empty.
Who turned out the lights?
Who's gonna come in and sweep them up? Fucking Amazon. You know why? Because Amazon wants to turn those units into fulfillment centers. Now, what is a fulfillment center? Well, basically, whenever you order something from Amazon, it goes from their fulfillment center where they stock all their inventory into a delivery truck and eventually into our front doors. Now, these fulfillment centers are typically on the outskirts of town, 1 to 2 hours away, because that's where the cheap warehouses are. Now imagine if the fucking mall was a fulfillment center. Malls are built near residential areas, which means instead of the fulfillment center being 2 hours away, it's gonna be fucking 20 minutes away, which means Amazon can now deliver packages to us in 1 hour or less. You know what that's gonna do? That's gonna make us even more fucking addicted, so we're just gonna order everything from Amazon, and Amazon's gonna continue to improve their service and make more fucking money. It's actually brilliant, and you know what? You know that they're gonna get a good ass deal from Simon Properties, because Simon's not gonna be able to rent this unit to anyone else. No one wants 200,000 square feet. Amazon does though, and they're gonna fucking get it for pennies on the dollar. This is a brilliant move by Amazon. They continue winning, they continue improving, they continue taking advantage of economic opportunities. So I think this is a fantastic idea. And you know what? I want them to fucking do it because I don't want to live in a world where I have to wait more than 60 minutes for my package to arrive. So Amazon, make this shit happen and get my packages to me in less than an hour. That's the world that I want to live in. Thank you guys. If you ever see a stock price of a company go from $2 to $60 in 1 week, you can automatically assume that something shady is happening. And that's exactly what's going on with Kodak. The camera company turned into a pharmaceutical manufacturing company. I'm still trying to understand what the hell is going on. To recap the story, Kodak, a company that was known for making cameras before we all had iPhones, was granted a $700 million loan from the government to produce and manufacture medicine in the United States. When I saw the story come through, I just had to double check and read to make sure that they were talking about the same Kodak and it wasn't some other fucking knockoff Kodak that we hadn't heard of. But no, the same Kodak that makes cameras is manufacturing pharmaceuticals. And when this news came out, the stock went bonkers. Went from fucking $2 to $9 to $15 to $30, and at one point it reached $60 a share. Imagine if, I hate playing this game, but if you'd invested $1,000 into Kodak, if you had $1,000 in Kodak 2 weeks ago, that would have been worth What does the Kodak chart look like? I have to fucking look this up. If you had invested $2,000 in Kodak stock on July 24th, that shit would have been worth $60,000 on July 29th, just 5 days later. So naturally, people assumed that something shady was happening. And I think it was just a matter of people not reading the details. Because when people started reading into what the loan, the $700 million loan was, it wasn't actually a loan that they were getting from the government. It was actually just a letter of interest. The government saying, hey, we might pick you, Kodak, and we might give you $700 million. So when people realized that they were getting hyped up, they were hyping up a stock because of a might, the stock crashed, and now it's trading at around $10. On top of all this mania and confusion of like, did Kodak get a $700 million loan? There's also some shady shit happening behind the scenes. There's an investigation being started on the compensation that the board was given. They were given a shit ton of stock options, meaning stock in the company, right before this announcement was given that they were gonna get a $700 million loan from the US government. So if the board of directors were given a shit ton of stock right before they knew that the stock was gonna spike up, that seems really fucking shady, because they could have easily sold this stock right at the peak before it crashes back down. Again, there's no evidence of this happening, but it is interesting. The board was compensated stocks right before this announcement was made. So keep an eye on that. And now the US government is realizing that there might be some shady shit happening with Kodak. And so they've completely halted this loan with Kodak. And again, they halted a loan that they never actually said they were gonna give them. It was just a letter of interest saying, hey, yo, we might give you this loan. I just want to make that point clear, because they were never guaranteed this $700 million loan. And again, let's talk about the fact that Kodak is completely pivoted from a camera company to a pharmaceutical company. And I just don't understand how anyone can justify giving this camera company $700 million in loan. No private bank would ever give Kodak $700 million in loans. They don't have the expertise to manufacture medicine. It's so fucking weird. It doesn't make any sense. So again, there's still more to this story, but right now, I think people have come off the high. The stock went from $2 to $30 to $60, and now it's back down below $10. Which makes a lot more sense. Hope you're on the right side of that trade, because if you bought at 2 and sold at 60, then Dave needs to hire you. But if you're one of the ones that bought up at 30 and now are holding the bag and hoping it's gonna go back up, well, I'm really sorry. Sometimes it just works that way. Don't get caught in the hype. There's more to this story. We'll be watching it closely, but I'm still trying to process the fact that there's a camera company that my parents use making pharmaceuticals. It's like if Apple ever decided to get in like the fucking car manufacturing game. I shouldn't say they actually might be doing that, so. It's like if Apple decided to get into like the pharmaceutical game. It doesn't make any sense. So we'll see what happens. I'll be watching this story very closely and seeing where this goes, but I have a feeling that this stock is still going to see some massive spikes in the next few weeks as this story develops further. No Bull with Zaid. Unfiltered business news like you've never heard before.